everybody. Welcome back to The Pitch. Thank you guys for joining us. First of all, before we get going, Ty is not here today. We didn't kick him off. He just had to work, so he couldn't make it. But I am joined by Kale today, and we have a few topics that we're going to talk about. The first one we're going to open with is the whole shenanigans surrounding Adam, who plays on the Underdogs right now. Now, for the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of kind of trade talk going on by a handful of different teams, really, with him, because he was offered a contract from Kathy Woodruff, and he turned it down. So he's kind of sending the message that he's probably going to leave after this tournament. So she was thinking about getting rid of him before, trying to get something back. But none of those actually went through, and there was one that actually happened recently that was probably the closest one to actually happening, but that didn't go through either, and Granny has cut off all trade talks and said it's not happening, he's going to play for us. So, Kale, this means that Adam is going to be on the Underdogs for JAL XIII. This helps them, correct?
Yeah, it does, and I just want to, it's unfortunate that we can't really, talk about who the players were that were involved in these, trade negotiations that were going on, because obviously the owners don't want that to be revealed. They don't want their, they don't want their players to know that you were on the trade block and all that. For obvious reasons, it would just kind of be stupid for them to do that. So that's why, unfortunately, we can't talk about who the players were and the other teams were that were involved in these talks. But yeah, basically, there was one that came really close to happening. It was a 3-team trade a couple days ago, and it didn't happen. We kind of wanted it to happen, Brock, because we kind of just thought it'd be fun to cover a trade, because it hasn't really ever been one. But, and then that was kind of the last straw where Granny Woodruff was like, all right, I'm done. I'm cutting it off the trade talks. We're just going to roll with Adam. And if we lose him after this tournament because he doesn't want to be on the team anymore, then we lose him and he goes to a different team. But your question was, are the Underdogs better off this way? My answer is yes, they are for JAL XIII, because Adam's a good player. He's a good starting pitcher. And we've got the Underdogs schedule review coming out tomorrow, and we kind of go into we kind of all agreed, everyone that was on that show, that given the weakness of the National Conference and just who they're facing, they have a real chance to make the playoffs. And we all kind of agreed that they would. That would, But if they lose him after that tournament and then they're left with Tierney and Macy, that's kind of going to be a hard draw to really get a marquee player to come to the team, assuming Adam leaves. No one's saying Adam's going to leave after this tournament, but we seem to think he is, Brock.
Yeah, when he said he's not signing the extension, he kind of basically sent that message. But I agree. I think obviously they're better off with him. He's a good pitcher. He's a good starting pitcher. He's gotten better over the tournaments that he's played in. And I also agree that it's going to be kind of hard to get someone, especially someone as good as a pitcher as he is, on the team next year. Although there are a lot of free agents, but
I just think especially if unless Tierney and Macy have really great tournaments, I just feel like it's going to be kind of hard for them to recruit a good player, like a top 10 player that's a free agent. They're come to the Underdogs. We'll be good. We have Tierney and Macy. It's that's just kind of, no disrespect to Tierney and Macy, but I just think it's going to be a really hard draw.
Yeah.
And so I think in the long run, they're probably going to regret, because in some of those trade negotiations they could have got, because Adam, he's a good player and teams want his talent. They could have got a couple of role players that could have made them respectable after he leaves, if he leaves.
Yeah.
But now they might just be left with ashes.
Yeah, Tierney and Macy are going to have to play well to have a draw there. So we agree that it's good for this tournament, probably not the best in the long run.
Yes, and we got that underdog schedule review. We actually filmed it yesterday. It's coming, yesterday, and it's coming out. It's coming out tomorrow. And Tierney joined us for it, underdogs player. It was a good video, so be sure to check that one out.
Yeah. All right, moving on. So our last couple segments here, we just came up with some questions that we thought would be fun to ask and let you guys know about. So first one here, Kale, is who is the team to beat in the National Conference? And the two teams that we have are either the Rapids or the Cobras. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of wish Ty was on here with us for this, so me and him could go back and forth because I'm sure he would say his team and I'm going to say my team. But this is a good question because if you look back to the last tournament, well, really for the last, ever since the last 4 tournaments, really, I would say, Rapids and Cobras have been kind of on the same level.
Yeah.
Ever since Ty and Sean, like that era with the Rapids started, and the Cobras have really been good for kind of the whole.
Yeah, well, 2 out of the last 3 tournaments they played in the conference championship. So.
Yes, but anyway, getting back to the question, if you look back to the last tournament in particular, the Rapids won the regular season, but and the Cobras took second in the regular season. But then you fast forward to the conference finals, they met up, and the Cobras beat the Rapids. So,
Yeah.
And that they actually didn't play each other in the regular season. So when they met up in the conference finals, it was the only meeting, and it was a great game. The Rapids were up 8-1 or something. I don't know. We'd have to go back and look. But the Cobras came all the way back late in the game and ended up winning by a run, I think, or 2. So I think I would say, well, I think the Cobras are the better team, and I think they're the team to beat. Number one, because of that, we got to the championship in the last tournament, but I think even more so because of the roster improvements that we made in the offseason. This wasn't really something we did, but we got Michael Sullivan back. That's a huge, boost for us. He's a great player.
Yeah.
And then we also went out and got Bryce Armo to shore up the defense. And the Rapids, yes, they were without Sean last tournament, but in my opinion, they had Nick Proudfit. They don't have him anymore, but they had him. It was Ty and Nick, and now they get back to Ty and Sean, which is what that core of that team really is. And
yeah,
Nick and Sean, to me, they're not that different. I just feel like the Cobras not only beat them last time out, but now our roster is even, I think, better than it was then. So, do you differ from me, or do you think?
No, I don't. I think the Cobras are the team to beat as well. Basically, for everything you said, getting Michael Sullivan back is huge because he's a really good pitcher. He was the best player on your team in that one tournament that he played in, and also getting Bryce because that'll help you guys on the defensive end, and also the fact that Ty's going to be coming off surgery, and we don't really know how he's going to be able to perform.
Yeah, now one thing we could go back to is people are going to say, now wait a minute, in JAL XII, it was Kale or me and Sullivan on the Cobras, and it was Ty and Sean on the Rapids, and the Rapids beat the Cobras in the semifinals of that tournament, and as we know, went on to win the championship. So, yes, the personnels aren't the same, but in the last tournament, there was no Sullivan for the Cobras, and there was no Sean for the Rapids. So and there is going to be for this next tournament, and I think those are the two big ones. It's those two teams getting those teams players back. And the last time they faced off was in JAL X, and the Rapids won that meeting handily, actually. So, you could look at that in the past and say, well, last time these personnels on each team went at it, the Rapids came out on top. Does that change how you think about this at all?
Yeah, especially, but the thing is, Ty pitched so crazy in the playoff run when they won that tournament, and he's played in 2 tournaments since then, and he hasn't pitched that way. He's still a good pitcher, but he hasn't pitched that good. And he's coming off knee surgery. Don't know how he's going to be. I do think Sean is a key part to them being successful, but I just think the Cobras have a better roster.
I do too. I think JAL XII, yes, it was what now 2 or 3 tournaments ago.
2 will be 3.
Not good at math, but yeah. So it was a little bit in the past. But I just think the reinforcement that the Cobras are getting roster-wise, and you think about Kevin Johnson on the Cobras now too, and he's a good, especially with the bat. That's really what he brings, the Bells. So I just think I got to go with the Cobras unbiasedly.
Yeah, well, I agree. So let's go. Let's move to the next question now. Team with the most pressure to do well. Now we're going to exclude the Express because obviously, they haven't lost a game yet. They have a chance to break the record for most wins in a row. They have the great roster, blah blah blah. So we're going to exclude them, and we're going to go with the rest of the teams. I'll start this one, Kill. This might surprise you, but I'm going to say the Cobras, you guys, and I'm going to say that because Sullivan's coming back. And I think he has we all have high expectations for him because we talk about him kind of a lot on this show and say he's a great pitcher. And so there's that. And then you guys went out and got Bryce. So I think you're going to be improved in the field. You made the championship last year. You came back in that great game against the Rapids and beat them when you're down 8-1. I just think you have a really good roster, and there's kind of this expectation there is an expectation in the Cobras franchise of winning. So I'm going to say the Cobras, even though there are other teams who have pressure to play well. Who's your pick?
That's fair what you pointed out. I'm actually going to go with the team we were talking about earlier, the Underdogs. And I'm kind of going to, I've got 2. I've got the Underdogs and I've got the Bambinos. I'll explain them both real quick. Starting with the Underdogs. They're 2 different types of pressure. The Underdogs, it's not the pressure to win the championship or anything, but I mean, look, this franchise hasn't made the playoffs for 3 tournaments now. It's a lot. I mean, it is. And even though their team, I think we're in agreement, isn't as good as it was in the last tournament. I think just given the circumstances of this tournament, for some reason, they actually have a better chance to make the playoffs because in the last tournament there was only 2 teams made out of each conference, and you had the Cobras and the Rapids. And the Underdogs were better then than they were now, but it's just, it's tougher to make it. And then now you got 3 teams that make it, and the bottom 2 teams you're looking at, the Storm and the Bison. I think the Underdogs are better than both of them. So I would think they can get that 3 spot, and I think considering that we think Adam's going to leave afterward and their future doesn't look that bright after this tournament. Well, it's really not that bright right now, but it looks even darker. Yeah. You're laughing, but I think just the pressure to finally get over this 9, get in the playoffs, and if you don't make it now, it's like things are going to get worse in the future. So I just think there's that pressure on them.
Yeah,
you got something to say?
No, I just said that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the Bambinos to me have a little unfair pressure on them. Mostly what's been hyped up is with us. We've been saying Bambinos, got to be a playoff team this time. Got to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's fair because they didn't make the playoffs last tournament. They're in the American Conference, which is tough. And but we'll get to this when we do their schedule review. But if you look at their schedule, they got the Express, probably going to lose. But then they get to play the Fog, and they get to play the Bison.
2 games they should win.
They should win.
Yeah.
And so I think, we've kind of found that if you go 2-1, you're probably going to get in. So to me, it's right there in front of them to get in the playoffs. So I feel like if they don't make it, it's not more on someone else taking it away from them. It's going to be they just laid an egg and didn't get in.
Yeah.
So I think there's pressure on them in that regard. And I think the unfair pressures, we've just been really hyping them up. We gave them the opening game against the Express. We've been talking about how this team's on the rise, yada, yada. And so maybe we'll find out if that was fair of us to do or not. But
yeah, both of those make sense. All right, let's go to the last one now. Now we just said which team has the most pressure. Now we're going to go individual players. So which individual player, including the Express players this time, has the most pressure to play well? I am going to say. Now there's a couple people, but I'm gonna take one that maybe some people don't think. I'm gonna say Ty Johnson. Now, do I understand that he's going to come off knee surgery to play in this? Yes. But when you look at his team, if he doesn't play well, the Rapids don't really play well. If he doesn't pitch well, the Rapids don't win. So I just think, considering what team he's on and the expectation that they have of winning, I think he has a lot of pressure on him each tournament to play well until he at least gets some help if he does. Who's your pick?
I like that one, and I'm going to pick one. My player pick is kind of along the same lines, but it is Jordan Halverson. And I think you're totally right with the Ty thing. You know, Ty and Jordan are, we've said this a number of times, they're like almost the same player.
Yeah.
Same type of pitching style, same, about the same amount of talent with the bat. They're kind of the rocks on each other's team. If they're playing well, the team's going to do good. If they're not playing well, the team's going to do bad. And I think Jordan's a little bit better than Ty, though. But anyway, I'm going to pick Jordan because, in my opinion, Sean is a little bit better than Stephen Todd. And so Jordan has that just a slight little extra pressure, I feel like, to really have to be dominant. And number two, Ty's going to be coming off that knee surgery, so it's kind of like, it's kind of like he's got that thing that you can fall back on, if he doesn't play good. It's like, well, he was coming off knee surgery. You're really going to blame him for that if he doesn't do well? Whereas Jordan, it's like he's perfectly healthy. But another thing, too, that I'm going to point out is that, yes, both teams have won championships before. Well, each team has won one championship. But the Rapids have failed. They failed before. They didn't make the playoffs after they won their championship. Even when the year they won their championship, they kind of just snuck into the playoffs. And, in that tournament in JAL X, they were like favored to win the thing. And then they just were horrible in the regular season and snuck in as the bottom seed, and then they still ended up winning it. So, but the Lynx, ever since this franchise has been in the league, the Lynx have been a very good top-tier contending team. And when you got the Express, the Bambinos in the conference, it's like there's teams that are going to be trying to take it, get above them.
Yeah. And
I just feel like it hasn't. Eventually, someday, it's going to happen where the Lynx they start going down. The franchise hasn't started going downhill yet. But in my opinion, it's really all on Jordan to keep this era of greatness with the Lynx going. And so I'm going to say there's a little bit more pressure on him because if they miss the playoffs. That hasn't happened before. They've never missed the playoffs, and they've always at least made it to the semifinals.
Yeah.
So it's like we're all just kind of waiting for that tournament where they regress.
Yeah. And
it's really all on Jordan to keep that from happening. Ty, it's happened once. It's happened before where they took that step back, and they're still good, But Jordan, it hasn't happened yet, so it's just kind of like.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I'd probably agree that he probably has a little more on him. But they both have pressure on him. Now the reason we didn't take anyone from the Express, and we both feel this way, is because they have a good team all the way around. So if one player doesn't play well, they're still good enough to win games. So I think that's why we both didn't choose anyone from the Express. And
I think the same way with even the Cobras and even the Bambinos. Honestly, the Bambinos are probably they just have more collectively.
Yeah, they don't have that one player, but they have more collectively.
Yeah, it's more like, I I can't think of a good analogy right off the top of my head. Maybe like the Seahawks or something, where it's like, you just got a good collective team, and then where the Packers, it's like it's all Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's just differences there, but yeah, I think even if Kyle or Brad or Tate didn't play that well, team would still they just have enough other talent that could do well still. Same with the Cobras.
Yeah.
And same with the Bambinos. And then you get into the other teams that we're not going to go into because we don't think they're contenders.
Yeah. All right. That is it. That's our show today. Thank you guys for joining us. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, JL_wiffball, Snapchat, JL-wiffball, and this YouTube, the website, all that stuff. So thanks again. See you later.